Thank you so much for this humbling introduction. Your Beatitude, Patriarch John X, we are blessed in your presence. Eminences, Excellencies, President Warraq, trustees and deans, Magistrorum et Scholarium, faculty and students, dear graduates, loved ones, and guests. I am sure you are wondering, what is a brain surgeon going to tell us tonight? Don't worry, there won't be any jokes about the brain like using spare parts to change your mind or anything like that. I will be serious. Since time immemorial, commencement addresses have reflected on the philosophy of life. As you have heard, I was born and raised in Lebanon, went to study in the United States as a teenager when I was a little bit younger than most graduates tonight. And I have lived there for 5 decades. I practiced neurosurgery for a living, operating on the blood vessels of the brain, and I'm also a neuroscientist overseeing a large research laboratory funded by the United States federal government. One of the greatest joys of my career is my daily interaction with young, brilliant minds like you, the closest one can get to drinking from the fountain of youth. And for more than 30 years, I have specifically reflected with students on the question of epistemology, or how knowledge is generated. When President Warraq approached me about speaking to you tonight, I decided to address the inescapable communalities between science and the philosophy of life. Science is about the quest for the truth in natural phenomena, and philosophy, philosophia, literally means the love of wisdom. Philosophy is about the pursuit of happiness and the good life. Science is about the quest for the truth. I do this recognizing that we live in a time of so much turmoil, not only in our beloved Lebanon, but throughout the world. But rest assured, troubles are not new in history, and they have plagued every generation in our part of the world since history was recorded. Yet, people have achieved the good life here and elsewhere, even as society has tackled terrible demons. I hope that I will leave you tonight with a few clear and simple ideas how to be a little bit wiser and how to try to achieve a good and happy life. The method for seeking the truth and finding happiness is best framed between two bookends, identity and purpose. Hence the title of my remarks, Identity, Method, and Purpose, Al-Hawiyya wa-Tariqa wal-Gharad. What do we mean by identity? Early Greek philosophers emphasized that the first and utmost principle of philosophy is to know yourself. In fact, know yourself, transliterated from the Greek gnothisiotton, was inscribed above the entrance of the temple of Apollo in Delphi, Greece, where the oracle of the temple is said to have revealed to Socrates the secrets of philosophy. Knowing oneself is about recognizing who you are when you look in the mirror. To know oneself is also to learn to celebrate one's multiple identities. In my case, I am a Lebanese from the north and also from Ashrafiyye. I am an American, a Christian. I am a lover of poetry, an avid biker, a husband, a father, a doctor, a teacher, and a scientist. I see all of these identities when I look in the mirror, and each of you has multiple identities who define who you are. You must recognize and be true to these identities. The modern philosopher Kwame Anthony Appiah tells us that identities ultimately help define the projects for life and our ideas for the good life. Recognizing who we are gives us a compass. So, my dear graduates, remember what brought you to the classroom, what made you enjoy and succeed in one subject more than another. You will never be happy unless you remain true to who you are. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who lived a century after Christ, had this advice: first, decide what you would be, then do what you have to do. After identity, method is the next prerogative of philosophy. Method describes what you should do in order to approach the good life. Tonight's graduates are being inundated and challenged by a plethora of informations and opinions. How do you know what is true and what is fake? Each of you has completed various courses of study, and you have mastered the canon of this knowledge. You are today at the top of your game. But have you thought how much of this knowledge will remain relevant a few years from now? Much of what you learned, except perhaps in theology, will become obsolete. Thus, you will need to keep learning and to reassess old ideas and assimilate new ones. In science, we call this process evolution by hypothesis. Whenever there is uncertainty, we set out to falsify the past ideas and to endorse new ones. You should learn to embrace this process. Many theories you have cherished will be disproven, and new concepts will arise that even your wisest teachers did not know about. For example, my team recently discovered, because of chance observations in the laboratory, that small molecules produced by bacteria in the gut can travel in the bloodstream and cause bleeding in the human brain, but only when some genes are disrupted, like when we age. This was never in the biology books. Who would have thought about this? But what potential implications on biology and medicine? Yes, the canons you learned at the university will become historical references during your lifetime, fading in the bright light of new knowledge. And each of you has access to encyclopedic knowledge, literally at the fingertips, through the World Wide Web. You can inquire and learn instantaneously about any question. This can enhance your understanding and open your minds to new ideas. Stubborn problems in one field will be solved through the concepts and tools of other disciplines. Computer science will be used to clarify intricate biologic signals, and artists will illustrate the physicists, chemists, and astronomers' vision. And zoologists who study insect whiskers and wings will inspire engineering solutions for sensors and engines at the nanotechnology scale. This is the life that is awaiting you. But as you filter all the information, you must also beware of being dragged into the false expertise of amateurs. The recent COVID pandemic showed us how many people pretend to be experts based on shallow knowledge or no knowledge at all. So beware of fake science and the trade in falsehoods. Instead, strive to articulate and understand your biases with humility. Admit the inherent uncertainty of your observations and others. Keep an open mind. Do not jump to conclusions without considering alternatives. Welcome peer critique. Do not shut it off, and beware of false generalization. In medical science, we have learned to grade the levels of evidence based on the rigor of the data. In any field of knowledge, even at the socio-political level, base your decision on the most robust evidence. Francis Fukuyama, who had written about the end of history and the last man, warned in his recent book that liberal societies cannot survive if they are unable to establish a hierarchy of factual truth. Nullius in verba. This is a Latin expression meaning take no one's word for it. Nullius in verba. This is the motto of the Royal Society of London for improving natural knowledge. This society was launched in England in 1660 and included members like Isaac Newton, Michael Faraday, Charles Darwin, and more recently, Stephen Hawking. Like these famous minds in the Royal Society, you should also adopt the same motto. Take no one's word for it. And no one means no one. Killun yani killun. Finally, along identity and method, there must be a purpose in our philosophy. 2,400 years ago, Plato articulated 4 cardinal virtues that frame the good life. He spoke of prudence, fortitude, temperance, and justice. These same cardinal virtues were later celebrated by Cicero in the Roman legal tradition, by St. Augustine in interpreting core Christianity, and in the Quran's reference to the straight path, al-Surat al-Mustaqim. We can best understand these cardinal virtues by imagining what happens in their absence. Without prudence, we underestimate consequences and we risk backlash, as in, I wish I had known, or law kuntu a'lam. You know all about this. Without fortitude, we tire and give up, squandering the ultimate harvest of our endeavors. And without temperance, we waste our assets in shallow affairs and short-lived pleasures. How miserable is the imprudent, hurried, and intemperate man or woman in any walk of life. The 4th cardinal virtue, which binds all virtues, is justice. Justice is what we give back to our neighbors, our society, our country and planet, what we owe to other creatures and to future generations. St. Thomas Aquinas commented about broken justice. He said, justice is destroyed in twofold fashion: by the violent act of the man who possesses power, but also by the false prudence of the sage. We can easily recognize the injustice of violent power, but we should also watch out for the injustice caused by neutrality in the midst of a moral crisis. Dear graduates, no matter how important and successful you become, let your passion always feel and even scream the pain of the dispossessed. Beloved graduates, your rich spiritual heritage and strong academic formation have prepared you well. Despite immense challenges, you have been bestowed great love by your parents, family, teachers, and friends. Do not squander these priceless gifts. No matter what, never ever forget who you are. Beware of falsehoods and go forth and live by virtue. You will love it. And as the sun sets on these shores which have witnessed centuries of history, tonight each of you is embarking on your own unique voyage. May you find the happy life at every port of call on this splendid journey. And thank you very much.